Being a psychopath is not only defined by someone who stalks a certain person. Psychopathy is a very serious disease that directly interferes with the emotional part of the brain. Social relations, cultural structures, and even families have their values distorted by a person with the disorder. In general, these people are antisocial, unable to feel guilt, and mostly arrogant. That is, a feeling of self-love greater than any other. And anyone is prone to suffering from this problem, even the geniuses. They are even more likely to develop the disorder. Shortly, you will get to know cases like this. I now present some of the 7 most intelligent psychopaths in the world. I'm still young Edgar, and this is Fear the Weird. Do you believe there's more to life than what we're told? Do you have burning questions about hidden and controversial topics? Subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification to unravel the mysteries of life and the universe. Charles is one of the most wicked and strange humans that ever walked the earth. He died in 2017 at the age of 83, saving at ease from what he did in life. High up on the IQ scale at 122 points, he never let guilt get to him. He lived in prison with a swastika tattooed on his forehead. He created a sect that caused the death of many people, including that of an 8-month pregnant woman, actress Sharon Tate, then married to film director Roman Polanski. There were 16 perforations made with knives in her body, many of them in the belly. But he didn't do much himself. His disciples were responsible for committing the crimes, but that didn't excuse the evil content that fed this man's mind. Aside from the murders, he wanted to create chaos. He premeditated a sequence of cruel acts. He was caught and sentenced to death, which soon converted to life imprisonment. He never left jail, but had a few accomplishments while in prison. He released songs and even got married. There are people with all kinds of tastes in life, even those who marry one of the greatest psychopaths to set foot on Earth. With an IQ score of 136, Teddy was an extraordinary student. He graduated as a psychologist at the University of Washington, was accepted at a law school, and got his state governor to recommend him for future jobs. Teddy could have made remarkable contributions to humanity. But along with his intellect, his psychopathy grew. He was a child with unusual interests. He liked to handle knives, was interested in heavy pornography, and imagined the act of his future crimes. The murders began when he became an adult. 36 victims have been identified and confirmed, but there is much more behind the scenes, according to criminal investigators. He is believed to have killed more than 100 people. But they were not just murders. Believe me, everything can get a lot worse. In conjunction with the crimes, Teddy committed rapes. He was completely sick and perverted. Some cases also involved decapitation, and after that, he had sex with the dead bodies. In 1989, he was sentenced to death by electric chair. Jeffrey was another serial killer without limits. He was born in 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, USA. He had an IQ of 145, but he never really took advantage of it. His adventures were in complete opposite proportions to his intelligence. Between the 70s and 90s, he was responsible for murdering, raping, and eating 70 men of varying ages. Yes, he was a cannibal, and after all, a necrophile. He raped men, killed them, had sex with the dead bodies, and even ate what he wanted. He was only arrested on account of one of his victims who managed to escape and warn a police officer. Even handcuffed, the victim managed to alert the police, who caught the psychopath. Dahmer died murdered by another prisoner with another type of psychosis. Ironic, don't you think? Psychopathy can present itself clearly in some cases, but in most conditions it can be dormant for a while, either by choice or for any other reason. Gary chose to hide his. He took advantage of his enormous intellect to create a church, that is, to hide his acts while maintaining a sacred appearance. Behind the Church of God's ministers, he committed atrocities on a giant scale. Prostitutes were called to join the church, but the chances of leaving were practically zero. Gary raped these women, beat them copiously, and finally killed them in the worst possible way. He has already come to dismember one of his victims and throw certain parts to give to the dogs. With others, he cooked and served with food. The list of atrocities is enormous, but because he is considered a man of the church, as it was part of his strategy, they remained unknown for a while. However, he was caught even with his IQ of 148, soon to be sentenced to death in 1999. A little more intellectual than the previous case, Carroll carried with him the same level of cruelty. Killed by a lethal injection in 1985, his IQ was 152. Between 1948 and 1980, 15 women were strangled by this man. His crimes were committed in several cities in several American states. In California, he committed murders in San Diego. When he went to Texas, he chose the city of Dallas to kill. In addition to murdering his victims, there were accusations of cannibalism with the bodies. The reason he gave for committing the crimes was that the women had betrayed their husbands. His anger would stem from the fact that his mother would also have betrayed his father. His method of strangulation was so well thought out that the police did not believe that he had committed the crimes until he started making confessions. Hell is full of good intentions. That sentence will define Ted Kaczynski as soon as he dies. After all, he committed terrorist acts on the grounds that they were executed for the greater good, the good of our planet. But before that, he became a PhD in mathematics, a teacher and later a hermit when he started his eco-terrorist saga. He went to live in the bush without any urban facilities like running water or electricity. His way of life was based only on what he could produce and hunt inevitably. When the effects of urbanization bordered his territory, he made his next move and planned bombing in 16 places. His goal was to target those he believed were responsible for the degradation of the environment, scientists and engineers in general. 3 people died in total and another 23 were injured. He remained in refuge for 17 years but was caught in 1996. He was sentenced to life in prison. He remains alive, completely wasting his stupendous IQ of 167. Sentenced to death in 2010 for his crimes, Alcala remains in prison and alive today in the state of California. In his account, there were 7 murders. His crimes have been brought to justice, but some studies estimate that he killed more than 100 people. He doesn't say, and nobody finds out, so the account is still low. With a gigantic IQ of 170, Rodney could be anything he wanted in life, but he decided to be a serial killer with a great level of sadism. But while he still hadn't discovered his bloody tendencies, he graduated in arts at the University of California. He was a photographer for a while and also performed other similar services in the same area. He would have been a guy with a spectacular future ahead of him. In addition to being known for the deaths, Alcala is remembered for participating in a dating program on TV, by which time he had already committed a few crimes. He didn't care about it much. Looking at his face without knowing his past, would you say that he is a serial killer? When a person wants to use his intelligence for evil, it seems that everything falls into place. But stay alert, high intelligence is not always accompanied by some horrible disturbances like these. In most cases, psychopath is far from genius. Unfortunately, these men were affected by the evil gene. Can you tell us now what your IQ level is? Is it as high as the bearish maniacs in today's video? Leave your comments below and subscribe for future videos. See you next time.